Hey, this is Royce Hall, your host of the Coffee Dreaming podcast. I'm a Salesforce consultant by day and podcaster by night. And today I'm joined by Mark Good of AI Force Training. This is an episode I don't think you're going to want to miss. We talk about AI, we talk about agents, we talk about the future of work with agents, LLMs, all the hot topics these days, and what that looks like in the Salesforce ecosystem, including where is Salesforce going with robotics? Are we looking at a Wall-E future or are we looking at a Terminator future? And what the workforce is going to look like in the not too distant future. Please like, subscribe, and send in some questions, emails. Love to hear from you. Well, today I'm joined by Mark Good with AI Force Training. Mark, it's great to have you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah. Well, Mark, with AI Force Training, you're doing a deep dive into everything Agentforce with Salesforce. So tell us a little bit more about what you have going on over there.
Yeah, but so I run a company called AI Force Training that I started, and right now our big focus is on Salesforce's latest AI product, which is Agentforce. And Agentforce really just came after the earlier waves of AI with predictive, moving on to generative, and then now we're into agents. And then Salesforce promotes in the future we're looking at more autonomous and robotics. But right now the big push and the big focus to skill up is with Agentforce. It's actually very hard. It's to actually deploy an effective working agent on the Agentforce platform, you have to do a lot of work. And so anyone who's taken the trailheads and done a little bit of education on that from Salesforce, you realize really quickly how much effort it actually takes. And so that's what we do right now. We run Agentforce bootcamps where everyone comes and they skill up on actually building agents. We have capstone projects and things that we do, and I work with students every day on solving those problems, like what to change in your instructions, what do you do with your actions, your inputs, your outputs, and how to actually deliver effective solutions. So yeah, AI Force Training, that's what I do.
All right. Well, you've opened up a lot of tabs in my mind here already. I think one of the things obviously that you sounded off on here is the difficulty of working with the agents, and I don't know. I have a couple of thoughts there. Like, on the one hand, it is very simple around like, okay, we're working with plain text, right? We're able to say, okay, I want you to do this, and it happens, right? So that's fantastic. Anybody that's messed with GPT, you're like, oh, like it does a lot of things. But I think the difficulty is like, give it the same prompt again. See what happens, right? Like, did it do the same thing twice? And that's why I think where all the difficulty comes in is like, yeah, okay, like, you follow the trailheads and you can probably get a, agent up and running in half hour, something like that. But then I think actually getting it to do reliably the same thing twice is like, that's hard. That's where it's like, I'm in my 20th prompt and I'm still going.
No, you're exactly right. Everyone is used to automations using fixed or static like code type decision making. So you set a rule and that rule runs and it executes no matter what. It doesn't matter what day it is or how you've slept that previous night. It just works. And so you walk away. And the agentic world, the AI world that we're in right now is very much you've got instructions and you've got to manipulate those instructions, and that is your code. But it's very dynamic. The outputs that come from those instructional inputs are very dynamic and they change. And so just like you said, you really have to go through an iterative process where you start with your core instructions and over time you continue to add to them and to manipulate them such that you're monitoring your output and improving those results, seeing an increase in improvement in those results. And that's how you land on your final solution that you can actually deploy. And there's a process that has to happen there. Well, you can't even go through that process unless you've switched your mind from I'm used to flows, I'm used to very deterministic solutions. Now I have to live in this world where it's gray area, where I have to like create the rules that will execute. And those rules get created by instructions that I make. And then I have to like somehow know how the AI language model is going to respond to these instructions that I create. And so just to give you a little anecdote, Anthropic's Claude has a system prompt. So if you go to Claude and you're using Claude, which a lot of people do, millions of people use this tool. The employees at Claude have come up with a prompt, a system prompt. These are our instructions. To make that agent or that AI respond in certain ways, they have 17,000 words in that prompt. So
Oh wow.
just think about that. Now, you don't have to do that with Agentforce, obviously. So we're working on a much smaller scale here, and your user base may be 10 for a small business, 100, maybe 1,000, 2,000, 20,000 for an enterprise. You don't have to have 17,000 words, but you do have to go through some level of deployment iteration of your instructions to make sure your agent is acting the way it's supposed to. So that's just the world we live in now. If you want to deliver the newest and greatest AI automations within the platform, you got to be a prompt engineer. And so that's what we talk about as a part of our training as well, is like, how do I create these prompts? How do I use best practice? Oh yeah, and by the way, you're going to select a model. So you've got dozens of models that you can use. You got to know something about these models and how to select the right one. And then your prompt's going to perform differently based on the model you select. So there's just so many nuances in delivering AI automations for your platform. Then let's pause there for a second, because we're just talking generics. Now, first you got to choose what even you're going to automate. And that's a whole process in itself, because agentic AI solutions are not for everything. You still use flows, you still use Apex, you still use like your really basic automation tools. And so you don't need agents for everything. If you go down the path to deploy an agent for a very simple solution, you're going to waste a lot of your time and resources to do that, when you could have just used a simple, like a screen flow to tackle it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think as I think about agents, in many ways, I think of them as a overlay of the things that have come before them, right? So, you see some of the use cases around like, oh, we can do case deflection. You're like, oh, we can already do case deflection, can't we? And, does it do it better? And I think it's like, okay, in as much as this able to answer a question and move the deal forward, and like when somebody asks a different question that I don't have a template already set up for, it's like, okay, like that's valuable, right? But a lot of things you're already able to do without an agent. And to your point, it's like, is it better? Is it more cost effective? Is it faster? And I don't know about you, but like when I look at like Agentforce, I think I think a lot of people go back to back office automation. They're like, oh, I can I can automate all these things on the back end. You're like, at least for now, you're gonna pay a pretty penny for that. Versus, I think where my opinion is where Agentforce really shines is that front end of like, okay, is it interacting directly with your clients, whether in a sales conversation or in a service conversation? Can it move the ball forward for them? Because like if it's like, help me figure out what this client is asking, it's like, okay, just throw that in GPT and I'll tell you. Like, do you need an agent for that?
No, that's totally fair. Okay, so the real value, what we're seeing develop here, because those same challenges are what we're facing every day here. Like, so our students they're a global community, and they're in all different types of companies. They're individuals, they're consultants, all different types of titles. But agentic AI touches all these different areas of business. So we get everybody, all right? And so some of the big themes that we're seeing develop are the value of an agent is evolving, and we're seeing the most value come from when you take static actions. So those declarative tools that we already love and know, flows, flow automations, and you layer on an agent just right over the top of that, where you're giving the agent a couple of key actions, like high value touch point actions. And then you expose that agent either internally or externally, but keep the scope very narrow. You can service customers really, really well, and you can service internal users via back office activities really, really well. So you do have those two, and we're seeing value in both. For the external, picking a very valuable business process, like qualifying your leads. Like when a lead hits your website, you want to start the qualification process with them. So having an agent be able to perform that without the user having to look at the chatbot and click a button and like answer a static question. Like, no, we want a very dynamic, conversationally driven process where if someone's chatting with your agent, with your chatbot, and in the back end, your agent's actually making decisions and updating that person's record, that provides a high value. That's a high value proposition for your company, for qualifying your leads. And so we're seeing a lot of value there. But it is both. It's internal and external agents. But the key is that you want a really, I haven't really talked about this much yet lately, but it's sort of like cutting edge, but like it's almost like a thin layer. You don't want your agent really far away from your actions. Like, I don't really know how to explain this quite yet, but it's like, yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. If you're into agents and you're doing some building on Salesforce, you'll kind of get some value out of that comment. It's like scope narrow, keep the agent really close to the actions, keep it really narrow. So like the agent knows really quickly to trigger a specific action based on what they're seeing in the conversation. And if you coordinate those actions correctly, then you could take a process like lead qualification, and make it really seamless for a customer. So they have no clue that they're going through a qualification process. They're just getting value from your company because your agent's able to respond with what they're looking for in just a natural conversation flow. But in the back end, the agent's like making decisions. It's very humanistic. Is that a word? Very human-like.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Right on. That's exciting. So let me ask you maybe a taboo question that we'll have to maybe edit out later. So what's the benefit, like being real, like what's the benefit of using Agentforce versus just like, can I just integrate ChatGPT and like, they're building agents over there. Like, is Agentforce a better experience in our CRM for our clients than just something like that?
That's a really great question, and it's very technical. And the answer to that really comes down to your objectives as a business, the quality of your team, like who do you have on your team and what's their skill set, and then what kind of technical debt are you looking for and what you're looking to be comfortable with. The great thing about Agentforce is that it's a very straightforward. It's on platform. There's quality training available to actually get it up and running and make it add value to your business really quickly. And because because you're working with data within your CRM, and or if you have data externally that you have mapped in some way via a product like Data Cloud or other similar products, then you have just really quick access to the right data, all the data, and it's really easy to spin up agents and start iterating and get through that challenging process. The moment you step off platform, you're learning new tools, other tools. You're having to look at potential middleware that you have to build out, or there's just a lot more complexity that you add on. Now, that's not to say if you have a big team of IT professionals, you can't tackle that and execute on it, and maybe you should look at that. But if you want to dig in and get it done quickly and get it done on the same platform that you're hosting all of your CRM data, then it's really easy to do within Salesforce. Salesforce does have some really good features out of Agentforce, specifically their RAG process where you upload documentation and then you can expose that right away to the agent. That's not new though, that's been around for a while, but you have your flow automations in Salesforce. And so being able to marry the flow automation actions with your agent, that's a lot. There's huge value there. And then the way that they've integrated their prompt builder product, where you could have, this is not even Agentforce, this is a flow, include a prompt template within your flow, which is a prompt builder product. So now you're not even talking agents, you're talking about agentic thought, logic, and decision-making within a flow. Like there's a huge value there as well, because you don't even have to expose any chat interface, or you're not coordinating with a customer or even an internal user. You just have a process that there's a decision point that a human typically makes. So your flow typically ends and you got to come out and send an email and someone makes a decision and goes in and clicks. You don't have to do that anymore. Now you stick a prompt template in the middle of a flow and the decision's made and the automation continues on. And so it's like, I call it like chaining flows. You may have a business process where you have a flow here and a flow here, and in the middle, humans are doing stuff, but you don't have to do that anymore. Now you can take the two flows, basically turn them into one, put the prompt template in the middle, the decisions get made, and the automation continues on. And there's just a huge value there. So the way that Salesforce is positioning these puzzle pieces together to deliver the automation, I I personally think they're going to continue down that path and continue adding more, especially with Mark Benioff's vision of the future. And we will see that shift to more of the taboo topic of uh, agents that are built on the platform are really operating a lot like humans, and even so much so that we may have a transition where in the future we're not having like admins go build agents. We may have admins or non like backend professionals creating job descriptions, and from those job descriptions the agent then gets created, if that makes sense. If we're pretty far off from that, I think, but that's the direction Salesforce is heading. And so I think at this point, anyone who digs into the Agentforce platform and builds out solutions there, they're only going to see value added on in the future. They can take those solutions and migrate them as we move forward, as capability increases, and be able to do even more with those particular setups that they have.
So let me ask you a fun question about the future then. So you were at the Dreamforce last year. Salesforce was pumping the agents, and they were pumping robotics, like you're talking about, which is that seems that seems like a very big change in the brand image. Since Salesforce has always been a software, not a hardware company. So introducing robotics is like, where is that going to go? So are we going the direction of Terminator or Wally? What do you think? Where are we ending up here?
Don't both of those have challenging endings?
Well, yeah.
I
So
think
I think the thing is like with the Terminator analogy, everybody's like, well, I'm going to be out of a job, right? Like the bot is coming for my job and is going to
gotcha.
put me out, even if I'm a software engineer. Like we're being replaced. And you hear that currently, like those are the news headlines of like Intel's downsizing and replacing with AI, or like the Wally analogy is like, okay, robots do everything, so we can be fat and lazy and watch TV all day. like,
Oh, that's right. So in the movie, they're like,
although there was like I think a maniacal robot behind all that as well.
oh, man, that okay. So
Spoiler alert!
maybe
You need to go
maybe
back and
that is
watch
a
that.
good comparison. Yeah, maybe that is a good comparison. Like, I think there's just a lot of gray area. I think we all know that, so that's nothing new. But I think where we end up going is a little bit of both. There's definitely going to be there's some huge shakeup going on, especially and specifically, I think, in the development and the coding space. I mean, if there's anything you can say that an agent does really well, I'm talking about off the shelf chatbot style, ChatGPT, Claude. One thing that they do really well is coding. And so um, we're wrapping that product up with an agentic coder, and then we'll probably wrap up from there with more like, okay, these are like business level agents that they're instructing the coding agents that are then using the LLMs that are then deploying the static code. I think we're just sort of building on these layers, and that's going to rock. It's going to continue to rock industry. And yeah, we're gonna continue to see the focus of employment to shift. Well, there'll be a reduced demand for, I really hate saying this stuff, like a reduced demand for specific positions like developers. Writers were hit first. Copy coming out of ChatGPT has been incredible. Um, Coding, I think, gets hit pretty hard. But really, like, what we're just going to see is a natural progression where those who are focused in the areas that get hit the most will transition to learning the new tool set, which will then be in demand in the workforce. And so maybe we don't even see job loss, over time. Like this stuff takes some time to play out. So we'll see how it all goes. But what I can tell you definitively is that no matter where we go, no matter if it's like a total annihilation of the human race, along the way, there's going to be a lot of value to be gained for anybody who's just on the cutting edge. So just if you've got skill sets on the cutting edge, I was talking with someone just the other day. They went through the boot camp and they were out at a I forget where they were specifically, but there was a company that was there showing off their sort of agentic product. But this person who had just gone through the boot camp came out of the boot camp fresh with a ton of information about how agents work and like there's a true mindset shift that goes on there. So once you have this understanding, you look at other AI and agentic products, you kind of can see how those work as well. So they're in this like it was a product demo, and they ended up asking questions from those who were doing the demo, and the questions were so technical they chatted after the fact, and they're going through an interview process right now for a role at that company, which is really amazing. So I love these stories that are coming out like that, and I think it's just those are just the anecdotal evidence pieces that say, like, look, companies know they have to be AI companies if they're going to exist and win against competitors. And so they've got to go out and find talent that can do these types of things. And so, um, you know, for Salesforce, it's Agentforce. Also, there's other AI products that you would use and bolt onto Salesforce. So even just knowing how those work, it's going to be important. And then outside of the Salesforce space, it's very wide open. There's just a lot going on, and there's a lot of different niche areas that are popping up where you could dig in and get some skills, and it only will benefit you in the future.
Yeah, right on. So let me ask you one more question about that then. You hear this talk about like, okay, the agent can code, it can do all these technical things. Does that mean that we don't need to learn coding anymore? Like, is that just a past tense skill that is no longer needed anymore?
For now, it's needed. There will, yes, it will be like over time, we're going to see some of the most senior professionals. There'll be a transition where we'll have a time where some of the most senior professionals don't know how to actually deliver. You couldn't give them a project and then deliver it manually. That will happen, guaranteed. Um, for now, yes, you still want to learn the fundamentals of the thing that's being created underneath. But over time, the need for that will become less and less and less. And there will still be things that AI or agents sometimes can't handle, and so you will have to have someone come in and like do that thing. We're not there yet. I don't think we're not quite there yet, but we're getting pretty close to that when it comes to generating code and executing. Now, the larger the project gets, the harder it becomes. But so if you look on the smallest scale, even today, if you can use a tool like ChatGPT to create a very simple app, and you can have an app that you can deploy. Actually, there's some other tools for this. I won't get too involved with it, but you can have an app that you can actually deploy that's publicly available, that can work and do things. And it may not be perfect, but it's there. And you can do that without having any coding knowledge at all. So we're already seeing the seeds being sown for a future where on a large scale, we have really large apps and really large complex systems that were all designed and deployed agentically. We're going there. Just the question is, how long does it take until the models improve to the point that it can handle all of the context related to creating those really complex systems? Right now, it can already handle really small, simple stuff very effectively. So the scaling process will be interesting. Um, at some point, you won't have to know all the nitty gritty details at the bottom. It's like you mentioned, I think earlier, just like this wrapping or this layering over time. And over time, we just move up the scale, and we don't have to learn, like, what's a good example? We don't have to learn HTML to send an email. Like, you just go into the app and you write the email and it gets sent, and that's that. So like, I think just that same concept on a much larger scale here is what we're seeing play out.
The thing that excites me the most, I think, is there's Salesforce has always been about getting power in the hands of the business users, right? And I feel like this is another step in that direction of like, okay, you don't have to be an Apex developer. You don't even have to necessarily know flows to work with these agents. And the more mature that gets, the more true that becomes. And for me, I just think like, okay, the most important skill set that any of us have is creativity, right? And GPT and agents don't take that away; they enhance it. So like, I'm not a graphic artist, but like I've done some really cool stuff with GPT, even with like even like my friends group. I have a sci-fi book club, and like we're reading books. I'm like, okay, give me an image of this scene in the book, and it does it, right? I'm like, I don't know, that
Yeah.
would have taken me a lifetime to make. Like, I can't do that, but I have the idea, right? So I have the creativity without the technical skill set to do this. And just what you're talking about, like the GPT can create an app for you. Like I don't have the technical skill set. Like I'm not a backend developer. I don't know how to work with SQL and Python, all this stuff. I'm not a front end developer. Like I don't know how to. I know a little bit about HTML, but like I'm not. I can't do the CSS and all this stuff. But we're in a place where if you have the idea, you have what idea of what you want out of that system. These tools are coming up that can bridge that for you, so that you don't have to be a technical person. And I think that's been Salesforce's dream all along.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah, that's such a great point. Some of the best value you can get out of a professional right now is not actually knowing all the really challenging things that have to be done to execute on the thing. It's really about, how do I find the right AI tools in the market, put them together in a way that the process creates the thing that I'm looking for. And so if it's super simple, like you want to create an image, there's tons of image generators at this point, but you can still go to like ChatGPT and say, create an image of this, and you get an image, and then you can iterate on it a little bit. Our job is shifting away from being the idea person. Actually, that's not true. It's all the same. Like we have the idea, we find the tools, and we execute on the idea. The big change is that the knowledge you have to have is being reduced significantly to deliver on the idea. And your value then becomes, well, how are you connected to the right tools, and do you know the right workflow to deliver on that thing? I've created a workflow just recently, and I can't say the platform that it gets used on, but what I can say is that now, where I used to spend hours, and I mean hours, doing creation, now I've got a setup where I have an anecdote of an idea. I feed it to the agent. The agent runs the process. I'm on the front end. I see the idea. The agent runs the process. Several things happen. It's really magical. I love it. On the back end, I get a prompt. Someone's like, I'm at the end of the process. There's a prompt that's like, how does this look? And I approve it or I reject it. And that's it. And that's my thing. So I have the ideas, see the system operates. I get is this good or not? And I say yes or no. If no, the process runs again. If yes, I have the thing that I need to do the thing that I need to do it with. And I'm saving myself so much time. So as a small business owner, fantastic. Like the value that was created out of this process is very, very high to me personally and for the company. And so that is happening on a much larger scale with big enterprise companies as well. And so as an individual, as a person who works for a company, knowing the AI tools, so for Salesforce, it's Agentforce, and for outside Salesforce, it's a lot of other things, but knowing the AI tools, knowing how to plug them in, knowing how to chain them into a process, we're creating a workflow that is so valuable for humanity and society. That's going to pay a lot of dividends. So I think, again, it's just like mindset, skill set, and execution. These are things that you have to win.
Right on. Well, Mark, thanks for sharing with us today. I know that you have a lot going on with AI Force training, so tell us where we can find you, what you have going on, what we should be looking for from you.
Yeah, we have some really cool stuff happening right now. We have a free AI fundamentals podcast for Salesforce professionals. So if you go to aiforcetraining.com and you look for AI fundamentals podcast, or AI fundamentals, I think if you click on it, you'll get a podcast that's about 3.5 hours. This was the material core for the AI associate certification for Salesforce. They have since discontinued that certification. We launched our own CRM AI fundamentals certification. So if you go through and listen to that podcast, take the test, you'll get certified through us for AI fundamentals for Salesforce. That's a free thing that we have that you can do today. And then the other thing that we do, which I'm extremely proud of, our efforts here, is the Agentforce bootcamp. We have an incredible 5-week experience where we take anyone who, as long as you're admin certified, at least in Salesforce, you get hands-on with the Agentforce platform, learning how to fundamentally build agents from the ground up with prompt engineering, topics, instructions, and actions, and actually deploy real working agents that you can publish live in the real world. And so we have an entire process for that. And we're training up professionals doing that. That's Agentforce Bootcamp. Again, same website, aiforcetraining.com, and look at the menu for Agentforce Bootcamp. We run these every so often. Seats fill up fast. So if you see that we're doing an open enrollment, go ahead and jump in. And then if we're not doing open enrollment, make sure you get on the email list so that you know when we enroll next. And really proud of what we're doing there.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And I know I'm going to go check that out, and I hope the people listening to this will as well. So,
Yeah.
Mark, thanks again for joining me. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate you having me on. We'll hope to see you again soon.
Sounds good.